cheating wife couldn't believe how wealthy I was. She demanded some cash for her kids, but I did this. The hum of Alex Hood's dual monitors filled his home office as his fingers danced across the keyboard. Lines of code danced in his mind as he reflected them in his wire-rimmed glasses, and the clock on his desk showed 11:47 p.m. A half-empty cup of coffee had gone cold beside his mousepad. The ceramic surface bore the faded words, "World's Best Dad, a Father's Day gift from Thomas 3 years ago." At 42, Alexander Hood had mastered the art of late-night coding sessions. The piece Marissa had insisted on buying from that overpriced antique store in downtown Millbrook. He smiled at the memory, remembering how she convinced him it would add character to his workspace. Her enthusiasm on that day still warmed his heart, even as his eyes burned from staring at screens for too long. A sudden burst of laughter floated through his slightly open window, cutting through his concentration. It was the familiar sound of Marissa's laugh, the one that still made his heart skip a beat after 15 years of marriage. But hearing it at this hour made him pause. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he listened more intently. The night air carried her voice clearly. Every word struck a chord, each one a direct hit to his heart. Can you believe he still has no clue? 3 kids, all yours, and he's still paying for private school. Alex's hands began to tremble with excitement. The monitor's glow, which had previously seemed harsh, now felt like a playful tease. Alex rose from his chair, the expensive leather creaking in the silence that followed her words. His legs carried him to the window automatically, and he felt a surge of excitement. Marissa's voice, soothing and reassuring, continued, though it had taken on a gentler tone. "I know, Bruce. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember how well you've planned everything." Bruce commented. The name echoed in Alex's mind, bringing with it a flood of images. He could picture Bruce at their Christmas parties, offering wise advice to his mother on investments, and holding Lucas at his baptism. Bruce, with his perfect smile and tailored suits, who'd been managing his mother's finances for 16 years. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline, and his knees felt weak. He grabbed the window frame for support. The rough wood beneath his fingers felt more real than anything else in that moment. Outside, Marissa paced the garden path, her silhouette illuminated by the security lights. She wore her favorite silk robe, the one he'd bought her last anniversary, and looked stunning. Her free hand gesticulated animatedly as she spoke, unaware of her audience. "Next week? Yes, I can make that work," she continued. Her voice took on that playful tone Alex had always loved. "Caroline's beach house is absolutely perfect this time of year. She's already offered to watch the kids." His mother, Caroline, was in on this too. The revelation hit him like a physical blow, forcing the air from his lungs. His grip on the window frame tightened until his knuckles turned white. Memories began flooding back, demanding re-examination. Those emergency calls from the hospital that always seemed to come when Bruce was in town. Those late-night financial planning meetings with his mother, always full of their own unique magic. And then there were the times Thomas's eyes crinkled when he laughed, just like Bruce's. And then there was Emma's auburn hair, so different from his own dark brown or Marissa's blonde. Lucas's natural talent for numbers mirrored Bruce's financial acumen. He dismissed these thoughts before, laughing off friends' comments about how little his children resembled him. Genetics are funny that way, he'd say, beaming with pride at his secure marriage and happy family. Now, each memory twisted like a knife, revealing layers of deception he'd been too trusting to see. Below, Marissa laughed again. The sound of her laughter filled his ears. You always know just the right thing to say, don't you? Yes, I'll wear that blue dress you like so much. A pause. I love you too. Good night. Alex watched as his wife ended the call, clutching the phone to her chest with a dreamy smile he'd thought was reserved for him. She stood there for a moment, bathed in moonlight, looking like the woman he'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But now he saw her differently, a stranger wearing his wife's face. She was an actress who had perfected her role over 15 years of marriage. She turned and walked back toward the house, her silk robe shimmering in the security lights. Alex stepped back from the window, moving silently through his office. He couldn't face her, not now. Not when everything he thought he knew about his life had just been revealed as an elaborate lie. His computer screen still glowed with the project he'd been working on, lines of code for a new software feature that suddenly seemed meaningless. The "world's best dad" mug beckoned to him from the desk. He felt a surge of energy, ready to sweep away the carefully maintained facade of his life and create something new and exciting. Instead, he sank back into his chair, his movements mechanical. The leather chair, once a source of comfort, now felt strange. He could hear Marissa's footsteps downstairs, moving through their kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the soft whir of his computer's cooling fan. All the routine sounds of their home took on a sinister quality. His hands trembled as they reached for his phone. He opened his browser and typed Bruce Cummins into the search bar, eager to discover what was next. Images loaded. There was Bruce at charity events, Bruce receiving awards for his financial advisory work, Bruce with his wife Krista at social gatherings. In each photo, that perfect smile beamed back at him. That same smile was a trait his children had inherited. The sound of Marissa's footsteps on the stairs snapped him back to reality. Quickly, he closed the browser and turned back to his code. The door handle turned, and there she was, still wrapped in her silk robe, standing in the doorway. "You're still up?" Her voice carried the same warmth it always had. But now Alex heard the artifice in it. "Don't work too hard, honey. Are you coming to bed soon?" He forced himself to look at her, to smile as if his world hadn't just imploded. "I'm just finishing up here. Go ahead. I'll be there in a bit." She blew him a kiss, a gesture she'd done thousands of times before, and closed the door. Alex waited until her footsteps faded before allowing his facade to crumble. His hands clenched into fists as the full weight of the betrayal pressed down on him. Tomorrow, he would begin investigating. Tomorrow, he would start planning. But tonight, in the solitude of his office, Alexander Hood allowed himself to feel the full magnitude of his loss. Silent tears fell onto his keyboard as 15 years of memories transformed from treasured moments into carefully orchestrated deceptions. The next 2 weeks flew by as he delved into a world of meticulous investigation, his mind racing with possibilities. Alex maintained his normal schedule with mechanical precision, while setting in motion a plan that would reveal the full scope of his family's betrayal. His first call had been to the highly recommended Jared Glover, a private investigator who had helped a colleague navigate a messy divorce years ago. They met in a quaint little coffee shop 2 towns over from Millbrook, far from prying eyes. Glover looked nothing like the stereotypical PI. Dressed in a pressed business suit, he carried a tablet instead of a notepad, a modern touch that matched his fresh approach to the case. But what really caught Alex's eye was Glover's sharp investigative quality. "Tell me everything," Glover said, his voice full of anticipation. His voice, low and professional, resonated as he stirred his Americano. "Leave nothing out," he said, his voice full of anticipation. Alex recounted that night's revelation. His voice remained steady, despite the internal storm raging within. As he spoke, Glover's fingers moved with practiced efficiency across his tablet, taking notes. 16 years of friendship with Bruce Cummins, Glover mused, looking up from his screen. "And your mother's involvement? That's a really interesting angle. Let's start there." In the days that followed, Glover shared updates with encrypted emails, each one unveiling another layer of the intriguing deception. The first breakthrough came from Caroline's beach house records. "Your mother's property has been hosting regular financial planning retreats for the past 15 years, Glover reported during their second meeting. "Always when you're away on business trips. The utility bills show consistent usage patterns, water and electricity spikes during these periods." Alex felt a rush of excitement as he reviewed the carefully documented evidence. Photos showed Marissa's car parked in the beach house driveway on numerous occasions, always alongside Bruce's Mercedes. The timestamps matched perfectly with her supposed hospital emergencies. The investigation into medical records proved even more devastating. Glover's contact at the hospital's records department had discovered a pattern of falsified emergency calls created to provide alibis for Marissa's absences. But the most shocking evidence came from a different medical source entirely. "I've obtained DNA test results," Glover announced during their final meeting, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. "They were conducted at a private facility in the next county. Bruce Cummins ordered them shortly after each of your children was born." Alex's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The clinical language of genetic testing spelled out what he'd already begun to suspect. Thomas, Emma, and Lucas shared no DNA with him. All 3 children's genetic markers matched perfectly with Bruce Cummins. "And that's not all," Glover continued, his voice alive with excitement. His voice took on a gentler tone. "I've uncovered a series of email exchanges between your mother and Marissa dating back to before your wedding. You should read them yourself." The printed emails painted a vivid picture that had Alex's blood running cold. His mother had been the mastermind behind the relationship, believing Bruce to be a better match for Marissa. However, she couldn't convince her son to break off the engagement. Instead, she created opportunities for Bruce and Marissa to meet, encouraged their affair, and helped maintain their deception for over 15 years. One email from Caroline to Marissa, dated just before the wedding, was particularly revealing. "Bruce is the better choice, dear. We both know that. But Alex is stable, successful enough, and completely devoted to you. This way, you can have everything: Alex's stability and Bruce's passion. Trust me, I've thought this through carefully. The betrayal had been meticulously planned and executed from the very beginning. His marriage had been a carefully constructed lie, with his own mother as the architect. Financial records painted an even clearer picture. Bruce had been ingeniously channeling money through various accounts, creating a safety net for Marissa and the children. Caroline had helped manage these transactions, using her position as the family matriarch to hide the money transfers within legitimate business dealings. Your mother's beach house isn't just a meeting place, Glover explained, pulling up more documents on his tablet. It's been used as collateral for several investments in Bruce's name. The property itself is part of a complex financial arrangement that benefits both Bruce and Marissa. Alex sat back in his chair, intrigued. The weight of each revelation pressed down on him. The bustling coffee shop around them added to the palpable energy of the moment. People went about their normal lives while his world continued to unravel with each new piece of evidence. What about Bruce's wife? Alex asked, suddenly thinking of Krista Waggoner Cummins, the elegant woman who'd attended countless family dinners, unknowingly sitting across from her husband's mistress. Glover shook his head. No indication she knows anything. She's a victim in this as much as you are. Though, he paused, checking his notes, there's evidence suggesting Bruce has been moving assets away from their joint accounts for years. He's been preparing for something. The investigation had uncovered a web of deception, so intricate that it took Glover nearly 30 pages to document all the connections. Bank statements, property records, medical files, and surveillance photos painted a picture of betrayal that spanned more than a decade and a half. Mr. Hood, Glover said as their final meeting drew to a close, in my 20 years as an investigator, I've never seen anything quite like this. The level of planning, the duration of the deception, it's unparalleled. Alex nodded, his face a calm mask that belied the storm raging inside him. Thank you for your thoroughness, Mr. Glover. Your final payment will be transferred today. As he drove home that evening, Alex's mind wandered to his children. No, Bruce's children. Despite everything he'd learned, he couldn't help but see their faces. Thomas was engrossed in his homework at the kitchen table. Emma was practicing her violin in the living room, and Lucas was building the most elaborate structures with his Lego sets. They were so full of life and potential, and their presence was a constant reminder of the unexpected twists and turns they had taken. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy at home. Each morning, he enthusiastically kissed Marissa goodbye as she left for the hospital. Every evening, he helped the children with their homework, played games with them, and told them bedtime stories. Although he carried the weight of knowing that every moment of his family life had been built on lies, he kept his spirits up. But Alexander Hood was no longer the trusting husband who'd stood at that window 2 weeks ago. As Glover uncovered more evidence, Alexander found himself transforming into a new version of himself. Strategic, patient, and eager to orchestrate a change that would shake Millbrook to its very foundations. Miranda Hughes's office was the epitome of her reputation. Sleek, imposing, and meticulously organized. Alex sat across from her desk, watching as she methodically reviewed Glover's findings. She paused, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses, remarkably comprehensive. Your investigator did an excellent job. She looked up, her sharp eyes studying Alex's face. Now, tell me, what do you want to do with it? Alex had deliberately selected Miranda based on her reputation. She wasn't known for being kind or understanding, but that was just part of her charm. She was known for being ruthless and effective. Her office walls were lined with news articles about her most notable cases, a testament to her remarkable achievements. Each one a testament to her ability to destroy opponents in court. I want everything, Alex replied, his voice calm but firm. But I want it done right. No room for counter-moves, no chance for them to prepare. I want them to feel as blindsided as I did. Miranda's lips curved into a slight smile. Then we'll need to be strategic. First, we'll need to secure your assets. I assume you haven't confronted any of them yet? No, I've kept everything as normal. Good. Keep doing that. She pressed a button on her desk phone. Janet, get me Gustavo Goodrich on the line. Priority call. Within an hour, Gustavo Goodrich joined them. The financial advisor's reputation matched Miranda's. He specialized in high-stakes divorce cases, handling assets with precision and ensuring their relocation was seamless and lawful. The timing needs to be perfect, Gustavo explained, spreading documents across Miranda's conference table. We'll meticulously orchestrate the movement of your assets, ensuring they're not too obvious. Offshore accounts, blind trusts, legitimate business investments that can't be easily traced or contested. The next several hours were spent meticulously crafting a strategy that would leave nothing to chance. Alex's software company would be prepared for sale. His plan involved a series of transactions, each meticulously designed to ensure the protection of its assets. Personal accounts would be secured, properties reassigned, and investments restructured. What about the children? Alex asked the question he'd been dreading to voice. Miranda's expression softened slightly. It was the closest she came to showing sympathy. Legally, you could contest custody based on fraud, but given the DNA evidence... She paused, letting the implications of the sentence sink in. I won't put them through that, Alex decided. They're innocent in this, but I'm going to make sure they're provided for through channels that Marissa and Bruce can't access. Gustavo nodded, taking notes. We can set up independent trusts for each child. These trusts will have ironclad terms, professional trustees, and no possibility of interference from any party. The planning continued late into the evening, and the group's excitement was palpable. Every aspect of Alex's life was examined, every vulnerability addressed. Miranda's assistant brought in dinner as they worked, the empty takeout containers piling up as hours passed. The hardest part, Miranda warned, will be maintaining normalcy at home while we put everything in place. One slip, one hint that something's wrong, and they might start moving assets themselves. Alex thought of the previous evening, helping Emma with her math homework. She looked up at him with Bruce's eyes, asking for help with fractions. The pain had been almost unbearable, but he'd smiled, explained the problem, and praised her progress. I've got this, he assured them. I've been handling it for 15 years without knowing. I can manage a few more weeks. The next days unfolded in a meticulous routine. Mornings began with family breakfast, and Alex enjoyed watching as Marissa packed lunches for her and Bruce's children. He'd kiss her goodbye, savoring the lies on her lips, then drive to work as if nothing had changed. During the day, he methodically prepared his company for what was to come. Private meetings with his executive team focused on restructuring, carefully worded to suggest routine business optimization rather than preparation for sale. Each decision was meticulously calculated, every move precise. The evenings were the most challenging, but he faced them with optimism. Family dinners around their mahogany table became exercises in self-control. Alex listened intently as Thomas talked about his soccer practice, noting how the boy's animated gestures mirrored Bruce's mannerisms. Meanwhile, Emma would practice her violin after dinner. The melody of her violin could be heard throughout the house, filling the air with music and joy. Meanwhile, Alex sat in his study, pretending to work while actually coordinating with Gustavo through encrypted emails. Lucas, the youngest at 9, was the most difficult to face, but he was also the most rewarding. One evening, as Alex helped him build a model rocket, the boy looked up with pure admiration in his eyes, Bruce's eyes, and said, "You're the best dad ever." Those words hit him like physical blows, but Alex maintained his smile. "Thanks, buddy. Hand me that glue, would you?" Meanwhile, the intricate machinery of his revenge was meticulously and inexorably set in motion. Gustavo had ingeniously crafted a complex network of financial transfers, each one legal but deliberately difficult to trace. Assets were being moved through multiple jurisdictions, eventually landing in places where they would be virtually impossible to recover. The beauty of it, Gustavo explained during one of their secure video calls, is that everything appears completely normal on the surface. We're not hiding anything. We're just moving assets through perfectly legitimate channels. Miranda's part of the plan was equally meticulous. She prepared documentation for every possible scenario, anticipating any legal challenges that might arise. Her team worked tirelessly, building an airtight case while maintaining absolute confidentiality. "We've documented every instance of fraud," she reported during a late-night meeting in her office. "The DNA tests, the financial deceptions, your mother's involvement, we've got it all. When we move, they won't have any room to maneuver." The most challenging aspect was witnessing Marissa persist in her deceptions. She maintained her routine of emergency hospital calls, each one now transparent to Alex as another meeting with Bruce. He'd noticed her jewelry, pieces he hadn't bought her, and he was curious. The blue dress she favored for these encounters hung in their closet like a silent accusation. Caroline's weekly visits became exercises in restraint. His mother arrived with homemade cookies, showering the grandchildren she had helped bring into the world with her affection. She asked about his work and his plans, and Alex was happy to share. She might have unwittingly played a role in shaping his life, but that didn't diminish the joy of these moments. "You're working too hard, dear." During one such visit, she reached out and touched his arm. "You look tired. You deserve a break," she said, her voice warm and gentle. Alex smiled, delighted by the thought of her, hoping he'd leave town so Bruce and Marissa could enjoy the beach house again. "I'm just so busy right now, Mom. Maybe later." The children were his rock, his anchor to sanity. Despite knowing the truth about their parentage, Alex found he couldn't stop loving them. They were victims of this deception as much as he was. Each night, he would check on them as they slept, ensuring they were safe and sound, their innocent faces peaceful in the darkness. He established the trust funds as planned, working with independent trustees who would ensure the children's financial security regardless of what happened to any of the adults involved. The legal documents were meticulously crafted, ensuring that no matter what happened, the children were completely protected. "These trusts are absolutely bulletproof," Gustavo assured him. "No matter what happens, the kids will be taken care of." As weeks passed, Alex's transformation continued. The trusting husband who had stood at his office window that fateful night was now a strategist, seeing every interaction as a move in an elaborate game. He took note of every phone call Marissa made, every meeting his mother arranged, and every coincidental encounter with Bruce at social events. Each piece of evidence was meticulously cataloged and added to Miranda's ever-expanding arsenal, including bank statements, phone records, and surveillance photos. All of these pieces were coming together, building toward the moment when the truth would finally be revealed. The facade he maintained was perfect. He attended school functions, hosted dinner parties, and played golf with business associates, all while orchestrating the systematic dismantling of the lies that had shaped his life for 15 years. "Your poker face is remarkable," Miranda observed during one of their meetings. "But remember, when the time comes, you'll need to be prepared for the emotional fallout. This isn't just about the legal and financial aspects." Alex nodded, his expression neutral. "I've been processing the emotional aspects for weeks now. When the time comes, I'll be ready." As the leaves in Millbrook transformed into a symphony of fiery reds, oranges, and yellows, Alex's preparations reached their final stages. The pieces were in place, assets secured, evidence compiled, legal documents prepared. He had become the architect of a different kind of deception. His plan wasn't about maintaining lies. It was about exposing them. In his home office, late at night, he would sometimes stand at the same window where he'd first overheard Marissa's phone call. The garden below was empty now, the flowers fading with the season. Soon, very soon, everything would change. But for now, Alexander Hood maintained his vigil, a silent strategist preparing to unmask 15 years of betrayal. Autumn in Millbrook painted the trees in brilliant shades of amber and crimson, a stark contrast to the gray clouds gathering above the Hood residence. Inside, the house hummed with pre-Thanksgiving activity. The air was filled with the delicious scents of roasting turkey and freshly baked pies, masking the tension in the air as Alex adjusted the formal place settings at the dining room table. "Everything needs to be perfect," he murmured, straightening a silver fork for the third time. Each place setting contained 2 envelopes. One was tucked discreetly under the napkin, while another was tucked away in his study. Timing would be everything. Marissa bustled around the kitchen, her energy contagious. Her designer dress was protected by an apron that read, "Kiss the Cook." She had been up since dawn, preparing what she thought would be another showcase Thanksgiving dinner for their social circle. The irony of her domestic performance wasn't lost on Alex. "Honey, could you check if your mother needs help bringing in her pies?" Marissa called out, wiping her hands on her apron. "You know how she insists on making them herself?" "Of course," Alex replied, his voice steady despite the knowledge of what was to come. The manila envelopes in his study felt like live ammunition, waiting to be deployed. The doorbell chimed, adding to the excitement. Bruce and Krista Cummins arrived first, perfectly coordinated in autumn colors. Bruce carried a bottle of expensive wine. Alex recognized it as the same vintage they'd shared at his 40th birthday celebration. "Alex, my friend," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. Bruce's handshake was firm, his smile confident. "What a gorgeous day for a family get-together." Krista greeted Alex with a warm air kiss on his cheeks, her designer perfume adding a touch of elegance to the moment. "The house looks lovely. Marissa's outdone herself again." Alex watched, intrigued, as Bruce's eyes flickered toward the kitchen where Marissa was working. A subtle glance. It was a gesture he had seen countless times before, but it had never struck him until now. "Please, make yourselves comfortable. Drinks are in the living room." Caroline arrived next, bearing her signature pumpkin pies. Her gray hair was perfectly styled. Her outfit was carefully chosen to project the image of the doting grandmother. "There's my boy." She beamed, reaching up to pat Alex's cheek. "Help your mother with these, dear. Won't you?" More guests arrived, their energy adding to the joyous atmosphere. These people had been carefully selected to bear witness to the unfolding scene. Among them were James and Patricia Wellington, from the hospital board where Marissa worked. Richard Chun, Bruce's business partner, was also there. Sarah and Michael Davidson, neighbors whose teenage daughter babysat for the Hoods. The children were at the kitchen island, helping with last-minute preparations. Thomas stood tall, his movements mirroring Bruce's confident mannerisms. Meanwhile, Emma arranged flowers in a vase, her enthusiasm lighting up the room. Her auburn hair, Bruce's hair, caught in the afternoon light. Lucas was seated, legs swinging, working on a math puzzle that showed the same aptitude for numbers his biological father possessed. "Everything's ready," Marissa announced, removing her apron to reveal her carefully chosen dress. "Shall we begin?" The guests settled around the massive dining table, a vibrant tableau of affluent suburban life. The crystal glasses danced under the chandelier's radiant glow, adding a touch of elegance to the setting. The silver cutlery glimmered against crisp linen napkins, adding a touch of elegance to the setting. Each place setting was a work of art, concealing its own surprise. Alex rose to give the traditional toast, crystal glass in hand. The room quieted in anticipation. All eyes turned to him, eager to hear what he had to say. This was the moment that weeks of meticulous preparation had led to. "Before we begin," he said, his voice ringing clear and enthusiastic across the table, "I have something to share with a few of you." He reached beneath his napkin, making a show of discovering the envelope. "Oh, look at this. There seems to be one for each of you." Confusion flickered across faces as others found their envelopes. Marissa's perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she lifted hers. Bruce's confident smile broadened. Caroline's hand froze halfway to her glass. "Please," Alex urged, his voice alive with anticipation. His voice took on a playful edge that made several guests shift uncomfortably. "Open them. I insist." The air crackled with anticipation as the sound of tearing paper filled the room. Alex remained standing, eagerly watching as the carefully orchestrated moment of revelation unfolded. Krista was the first to react. Her sharp intake of breath cut through the room as she stared at the photographs of Bruce entering Caroline's beach house. Marissa at his side. Dates stamped in the corner matched his supposed business trips. Bank statements showed regular transfers to offshore accounts. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice rising. "Bruce." But Bruce was staring at his own envelope, face draining of color as he recognized the DNA test results. His eyes darted to the children, who were watching the scene unfold with growing confusion. Marissa's hands shook as she read through her dossier. Emails between her and Caroline spanning 15 years, planning meetings, coordinating deceptions. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her face. Caroline's envelope contained trust fund documents showing Alex's systematic dismantling of her control over family assets, along with copies of her own emails proving her role as architect of the deception. "How dare you?" Krista's voice broke the silence, adding to the drama. She grabbed her wine glass, its contents arcing through the air to splash across Bruce's expensive shirt. 15 years? All 3 children? The room erupted into a roar of excitement. Patricia Wellington gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Richard Chun jumped to his feet. The Davidsons exchanged glances, their faces a picture of shock and awe. "Alex," Caroline started. Her voice trembled with emotion. "I only wanted what was best." "Best for whom?" "Mother." Alex's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Best for your son, whose life you helped destroy. Or best for your friend Bruce, whom you thought was a better match." Marissa sat in stunned silence, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. The children looked between the adults, confusion giving way to dawning comprehension. "Dad?" Thomas's voice quavered. "What's happening?" Alex turned to the children, his heart breaking anew. "I think it's time for you 3 to go upstairs. Sarah, would you mind?" Sarah Davidson quickly ushered the children out, throwing a sympathetic glance over her shoulder. The sound of their footsteps on the stairs seemed to echo through the house. "You couldn't just confront us privately?" Bruce finally spoke. His usual confidence melted away, replaced by a fiery passion. "You had to make a spectacle? Like the spectacle of being best man at my wedding?" Alex's tone was cool and collected. "Or the spectacle of being godfather to your own children while I remained ignorant?" "No, Bruce. You all chose your audience years ago. I'm simply providing the grand finale." Krista's tears had given way to fury. "My lawyer will be in touch," she spat at Bruce. "Expect to hear from Valerie Stevens first thing tomorrow." "Now, let's not be hasty," Bruce began. But Krista cut him off. "Hasty? Like hiding assets for years?" Planning a second family behind my back? Miranda Hughes has already been contacted. Hasn't she, Alex? She turned to him. A new ally in destruction. Alex nodded. Everything's prepared. Every account. Every transaction. Every meeting at the beach house. There's nothing left to hide. Caroline reached for her son's arm. Alexander, please? We can explain everything. He pulled away from her touch as if burned. Explain? Like you explained to Marissa before our wedding how she could have everything. My stability and Bruce's passion? I read the emails, Mother. Every single one. The carefully prepared dinner grew cold. The turkey was forgotten as 15 years of deception unraveled around the Thanksgiving table. Outside, the gathering storm finally broke. The rain pounded the windows, as if nature itself was trying to wash away the lies. You'll destroy everything. Marissa finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. No. Alex corrected her. His calm presence radiated a strength that belied the storm of emotions beneath the surface. You destroyed everything the moment you decided to build our marriage on lies. I'm simply revealing the truth. Now, I believe dinner is served. He took a seat at the head of the table, surrounded by the remnants of relationships past and the tantalizing aroma of cooling food. The perfect Thanksgiving dinner had become a feast of consequences. Each mouthful was filled with the promise of new discoveries and the potential for growth. Outside, the rain continued to fall, marking the beginning of a storm that would reshape the lives of everyone at the table. In his pocket, Alex felt the weight of the second envelope, the one containing the next phase of his carefully orchestrated plan. But that would have to wait. For now, he reveled in the spectacle of 15 years of deception being consumed by the warm light of his dining room chandelier. The weeks following the Thanksgiving revelation unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance of destruction, and Alex couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Miranda Hughes's office became the heart of this transformation, impacting the lives of many. The divorce proceedings will be swift, Miranda explained to Alex, spreading documents across her mahogany desk. Your evidence is so thorough, they'll have no choice but to accept the divorce. Across town, in another high-rise office, Valerie Stevens was having a similar conversation with Krista Cummins. The two women had formed an alliance of vengeance, their combined legal assault leaving Bruce's carefully constructed financial facade crumbling. Every hidden account, every secret transaction, Valerie detailed, her red lacquered nails tapping against her tablet. Your husband's been planning for this possibility for years, but he didn't count on us finding his overseas holdings. The children remained at home with Marissa, shielded from the immediate aftermath by their physical absence from the Thanksgiving reveal. Alex's decision to refuse custody had surprised everyone except Miranda. Are you certain about this? Miranda had asked during their initial post-Thanksgiving meeting. The courts might be sympathetic, given the circumstances. Alex's response had been firm. They've lost one father figure. I'm determined to make sure they don't lose their home, and I'm going to make sure the trust fund is ironclad. Neither Marissa nor Bruce will have access to a single penny mint for the children. The trust fund arrangements became a masterpiece of legal architecture. Independent trustees, strict disbursement conditions, and educational provisions that would ensure Thomas, Emma, and Lucas would want for nothing despite their parents' choices. Marissa's attempts to contest the divorce terms met with swift, devastating responses. Each challenge was met with another piece of evidence from Alex's carefully compiled dossier. Her lawyer, James Patterson, finally advised her to accept the terms. "Mrs. Hood," Patterson had said, his voice heavy with resignation, "Mr. Hood's evidence is extensive and irrefutable. Fighting this will only deplete resources better saved for your children's future." The hospital board, presented with evidence of Marissa's falsified emergency calls, launched their own investigation. The prestigious position she'd held for years suddenly seemed precarious, but she was excited to move forward. Bruce's financial empire began to crumble under the combined assault of Alex's evidence and Krista's legal team. His clients, many of whom were prominent Millbrook residents, began quietly withdrawing their accounts. The scandal had spread through the town's social circles like wildfire. "He's losing everything," Krista informed Alex during one of their strategy meetings. Her initial fury had hardened into cold determination. The house, the summer properties, most of his clients. It's what he deserves. Caroline's attempts to protect her assets had been fruitless. The family trust, which she'd used as a tool to maintain control over her son's life, had been systematically dismantled. Her social standing in Millbrook, built over decades, might have disappeared when people found out about her role in the deception, but she didn't care. "I only wanted to protect you," she pleaded during an unsuccessful attempt to meet with Alex at Miranda's office. "Bruce had the connections, the influence. You thought you knew better than your own son." Miranda interrupted, her tone glacial. "The documents say otherwise, Mrs. Root. Shall we review them again?" When the children finally heard the full story, their reaction was truly heartwarming. Thomas, the eldest at 14, had locked himself in his room for days, but he was ready to face the world again. Emma paused her violin practice, leaving her instrument case in the corner of her room. Lucas, too young to fully understand the complexities of the adult's world, simply asked when he would see his dad again. Soon, Marissa had promised, though she had no idea if it was true. The light in her children's eyes, once so bright with innocence, had dimmed with the weight of adult deceptions, but she was hopeful for the future. But Bruce was determined to reconnect with his kids. He reached out through a letter sent by his lawyer. Alex intercepted it through Miranda, adding it to the growing file of evidence. "He's trying to establish a parental relationship now?" Miranda's disgust was evident. After 15 years of playing family friend and godfather, the divorce proceedings moved with unprecedented speed, thanks to the overwhelming evidence and Marissa's eventual capitulation. The financial settlements were decisive and straightforward, ensuring a clear and amicable conclusion. "It's done," Miranda announced one gray afternoon, sliding the final papers across her desk. "Once you sign these, you're legally free of all of them." Alex's pen hovered over the signature line. "And the children's trusts?" "Absolutely secure. The trustees have their instructions, and the funds are protected from any attempts at access by Marissa or Bruce. They'll be all set for college and beyond." The pen danced across the paper, its momentum building as Alex's excitement grew. The sound was somehow louder than it should have been. Years of marriage, of family life, of trust and betrayal, reduced to a few signatures and legal stamps. Outside Miranda's office windows, Millbrook continued its daily rhythm, unaware that one of its most prominent families had just been officially dissolved. Snow had begun to fall, the first of the season, covering the town in a blanket of white that seemed to mock the idea of purity. And finally, the sale of your company, Miranda said, reaching for the final folder. But Alex was already ahead of her, pulling out his own documents. The next phase of his plan was already in motion, though only he knew its full scope. The company sale had been arranged weeks ago. The terms had been negotiated through intermediaries to ensure complete privacy. Everything's prepared, he assured her. The transfer will be complete by the end of the week. Miranda studied her client's face, noting the transformation that had occurred since that first meeting weeks ago. The betrayed husband had become something else. He had become more determined, more focused, and more dangerous in his quiet confidence. "What's next for you?" she asked, though she suspected he wouldn't give her a complete answer. Alex stood, looking out at the falling snow. In his mind, he could already see the next steps taking shape, each one meticulously planned. Those plans would remain his alone, shared only with those who need to know specific parts. "Now," he said, "I disappear." Outside, the snow continued to fall, erasing tracks, covering signs, and making everything look clean and new. But beneath that pristine surface, Millbrook was undergoing a transformation. 3 marriages had ended. A financial empire was crumbling. A family had shattered. And Alexander Hood was about to embark on a new adventure, leaving behind a trail of transformation that would reshape the town's social landscape for years to come. The art of disappearing, Alex discovered, required as much precision as the revenge he just orchestrated. Each step had to be carefully planned. Each trace was thoughtfully erased or redirected. The sale of his company to a competitor was just the first move in a complex game of personal chess. Luther Haney's Singapore office overlooked the Marina Bay, the city-state's famous skyline reflecting off the water like a promise of new beginnings. His old college friend understood immediately when he called. There were no questions about the urgency or need for discretion. "Everything's arranged," Luther assured him via secure video call, his image slightly distorted by encryption. "The apartment, the introductions, the infrastructure you'll need, all taken care of. When can you leave?" Alex glanced around his nearly empty home office. Most of his personal items were already packed or disposed of. "The company sale is finalizing tomorrow. I'll be on a plane the day after." The mechanics of vanishing proved surprisingly complex, but he was confident he'd figure it out. Miranda Hughes had taken care of the legal aspects, making sure everything was properly documented while keeping his destination a secret. Gustavo Goodrich had created a labyrinth of financial transfers that would make tracking his movements nearly impossible. "Your assets are secured," Gustavo confirmed during their final meeting. "The transfers will be completed through various jurisdictions over the next few weeks. By the time anyone thinks to look, the trail will be cold." The hardest part wasn't the logistics, it was the children. Alex spent one last evening in his study, writing 3 letters to be delivered years in the future. In these letters, he would explain his actions, his love, and his reasons for leaving. Miranda would hold them until the right time, when they were old enough to understand. "Dear Thomas," he began the first letter, his pen hovering over the expensive stationery. "By the time you read this, you'll be 18, and you'll know the truth about everything that happened." He wrote until dawn, pouring his heart into each letter, explaining his choices, his love, and his hopes for their futures. The trust funds would ensure their education and opportunities, but these letters would give them something money couldn't: understanding. The day of his departure arrived with a crisp winter morning. His home, now empty of personal belongings, echoed with memories he'd never revisit. He walked through each room one last time, remembering the life he'd built and lost. In the kitchen, where family breakfasts had once filled the air with laughter and the scent of coffee, he felt a sense of optimism for the future. In the living room, Emma had practiced her violin while Lucas built his Lego cities on the carpet. In Thomas's room, where father and son had spent countless hours discussing soccer strategies and school projects. His final stop was his office, where everything had begun that autumn night. The window still looked out over the garden, though the flowers were long dead now, buried under winter's first snow. He touched the glass one last time, remembering Marissa's voice floating up through the darkness, shattering his world. Luther's arrangements were nothing short of perfect. A private car arrived right on time, the driver discreet and professional. Alex's luggage, meticulously chosen to reveal nothing of his destination, was effortlessly loaded. "The first flight is to London," Luther had explained during their last call. "Then a series of connections that'll make tracking impossible. By the time anyone realizes you're gone, you'll be established somewhere they'd never think to look." Miranda eagerly met him at her office for a final review of the arrangements. "Everything's in place," she confirmed. Her tone was a soft blend of professionalism and excitement. "The letters for the children are secured in my private safe. The trust fund arrangements are ironclad. The company sale is complete." She paused, studying his face. "Are you sure about this?" Alex nodded, tucking the documents into his briefcase. "It's the only way. They took everything from me, but now I'm in control. Now, I'm choosing to leave on my own terms. What should I tell them when they ask?" "Tell them whatever you want. By then, I'll be off to new adventures." The international terminal at the airport hummed with pre-dawn activity. Alex walked through security with his new documents, each step taking him further from the life he'd known. His old phone, now a mere remnant of his past, nestled snugly in Miranda's office safe, a token of a life well lived. As he waited at his gate, he thought about what he was leaving behind. The ruins of his marriage, the unexpected turn of events with his mother, the children he'd raised and loved, who would have to find their way without him. The company he'd built from the ground up was now sold to new owners who would shape it in exciting new directions. But he was leaving something else too. He had learned to trust others, and that trust had been taken advantage of. His belief in family bonds that couldn't be broken. He had always believed in the power of love to keep people loyal. As the morning sun broke through the airport's massive windows, his flight was called. Alex stood, shouldering his carry-on bag. He handed his boarding pass to the agent, his eyes focused on the path ahead, not looking back at the terminal, the city beyond, or the life he was leaving behind. As the plane soared into the dawn sky, banking over Millbrook one last time, Alex closed his eyes, his heart full of hope for the future. Below him, his past grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely, lost in the clouds that separated him from everything he'd once believed was true. In his briefcase, Luther's detailed instructions waited alongside new identification documents and banking information. Across the world, a new life was taking shape, one that would be entirely his own, free from the web of lies that had entangled him for so long. The plane climbed higher, leaving Millbrook, its secrets, and its betrayals far behind. Alexander Hood, the deceived husband, the misunderstood son, and the non-biological father, disappeared into the morning sky, becoming someone else entirely. His story was about to begin. In his wake, he left a town in a state of flux, a family in shambles, and a legacy of truth that had shattered the carefully constructed facades of Millbrook's most respected citizens. Most importantly, he left on his own terms, choosing the manner and moment of his disappearance, denying them the satisfaction of seeing the impact of their betrayal. Miranda Hughes stood at her office window, watching the contrails of Alex's plane dissolve into the winter sky. On her desk, 3 sealed letters waited in their envelopes, each marked with a future date and a child's name. The final pieces of Alexander Hood's carefully orchestrated exodus were in place. The snow continued to fall over Millbrook, covering everything in clean, pure white, as if trying to erase the events of the past weeks. But beneath that pristine surface, something incredible was about to unfold. The man who had exposed 15 years of lies had vanished, leaving behind a town forever changed by the truth he'd revealed. The Singapore skyline glittered against the pre-dawn sky as Alexander Hood reviewed the final acquisition documents. At 52, he looked every bit the transformed man who had fled Millbrook a decade ago. His dark hair now carried distinguished streaks of silver at the temples, and years of martial arts training had transformed his once soft programmer's physique into lean muscle. But the most thrilling transformations weren't just physical. His gaze was fierce and his movements confident. "The Millbrook Tech Park acquisition papers are ready, Mr. Hood," his executive assistant, Wei Chun, announced, placing a leather portfolio on his desk. "The board meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. Eastern Time." Alex checked his Patek Philippe watch, a small indulgence that marked his first billion, and nodded. "Thank you, Wei. Is the video conference set up?" "Absolutely, sir. I still think you should consider handling this in person." Alex's lips curved slightly in a smile. Hood Innovations occupied the top 10 floors of Singapore's most prestigious business tower, a far cry from his humble startup days. The company had completely revolutionized supply chain management through blockchain technology, becoming a major player in the Asian tech market. Now, the time had come to return home on his terms. The video conference screen flickered to life, revealing the impressive Millbrook Tech Park boardroom. 10 years had changed the faces around the table, but not the desperate hope in their eyes. The once proud technology hub of Millbrook had fallen on hard times, making it perfect for Alex's purposes. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," Alex said, his voice ringing with enthusiasm. Alex's voice carried the subtle authority of success. "Let's discuss the future of Millbrook Tech Park." Board Chairman David Foster, whose hair was grayer than Alex remembered, leaned forward. "Mr. Hood, we're grateful for Hood Innovations' interest, but some board members have expressed concern about a remote acquisition." "Remote?" Alex's chuckle held no humor. "Mr. Foster, I know Millbrook better than anyone in that room. I built my first company there." Several faces lit up with recognition. Foster's eyes widened in surprise. "Alexander Hood, the same Hood who—" "The very same," Alex confirmed enthusiastically, "though I'd prefer we focus on business rather than history." The acquisition proposal was comprehensive, a complete revival of the tech park, with Hood Innovations establishing its Western headquarters there. The numbers were so impressive that any objections about his past were immediately silenced. "This would bring hundreds of jobs to Millbrook," Foster mused, flipping through the proposal. "This will be a game-changer for the economy." Alex finished. "Your technology hub is struggling because it never evolved. We'll change that. Hood Innovations is at the forefront of next-generation supply chain solutions. Blockchain technology, AI integration, automated logistics, we've got it all." The board's questions were technical, focused on financials and implementation timelines. No one dared mention the scandal that had driven him from Millbrook a decade ago, though Alex could see the knowledge in their eyes. As the meeting wrapped up, Foster cleared his throat, ready to move forward. "There's one more thing, Mr. Hood. Your return will generate significant local interest." "I'm aware." Alex's voice remained neutral. "My PR team will be handling all the media inquiries. Now, shall we sign?" With a swift gesture, they exchanged digital signatures, sealing the deal. Contracts were executed with clinical precision. Alex sat back in his ergonomic chair, thrilled at the sight of the board members filing out of their meeting room thousands of miles away. After a decade of meticulous preparation, this moment had finally arrived. Wei entered with a fresh cup of green tea, adding to the atmosphere of anticipation. Another one of Alex's cherished Asian habits. "Congratulations, sir. Should I begin making arrangements for the transition team?" "Absolutely. And Wei, what do you think?" Alex turned to look out over the stunning Singapore skyline. "Book me a penthouse at the Grand Millbrook. It's time I went home." The news of Hood Innovations' acquisition of Millbrook Tech Park broke during morning trading hours. Financial analysts praised the strategic expansion, and local Millbrook press eagerly connected the dots between the Singapore-based tech giant and their town's most notorious scandal. Alex, in the comfort of his private jet, relished the headlines that flashed across his tablet as he savored a single malt scotch. Hood Innovations acquires struggling Millbrook Tech Park. Prodigal son returns. Alex Hood's billion-dollar comeback. From scandal to success, the resurrection of Alexander Hood. The flight from Singapore to Boston's Logan International Airport gave him time to review the changes he'd orchestrated. Hood Innovations' Western headquarters would transform the tech park into a cutting-edge facility. The local economy, which had stagnated in recent years, was about to experience a renaissance. Hood would return not as a victim of betrayal, but as the architect of Millbrook's future. Landing at Logan, Alex found his chosen vehicle waiting. A midnight blue Bentley Continental, understated yet unmistakably powerful. As he drove to Millbrook, he relished the opportunity to reconnect with the landscape of his past. The town had changed less than he expected, but in a good way. The same Victorian houses lined the main streets, a testament to the town's enduring character. Their facades, though perhaps a bit more weathered, still held the same charm. The shopping district showed signs of economic struggle, with more vacant storefronts than he remembered, but he knew the town wouldn't let that stop it from thriving. But as he approached the tech park, the future was already visible in the construction equipment and renovations underway. The Grand Millbrook, the town's only luxury hotel, had prepared his penthouse suite with painstaking attention to detail. From his window, Alex could see his old neighborhood, including the house where his life had unraveled a decade ago. New families now lived there, unaware of the drama that had played out within those walls. "Welcome back to Millbrook, Mr. Hood." The hotel manager greeted him warmly. Handing over his keycard. "Is there anything else you require, Mr. Hood?" Alex smiled, his expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. "No, thank you. Everything is exactly as it should be." That evening, he stood at his penthouse window, basking in the joy of the moment as he gazed at the spectacular sunset over the town that had both made and broken him. Tomorrow, the business of transformation would begin. Hood Innovations was poised to redefine Millbrook's technological landscape, and the town's imminent reconnection with its founder would set the stage for a new era of growth and reflection. His phone buzzed with a message from Miranda Hughes. "Everything's ready. The children received their letters last month, just as planned." Alex nodded to himself, slipping the phone back into his pocket. The first act of his return was complete. Now came the harder part. He faced the people whose lives his disappearance had altered forever, and he was eager to show them exactly what they had underestimated. The lights of Millbrook twinkled below, a constellation of memories and possibilities. Alexander Hood had returned, bringing with him the power to reshape the town's future. The betrayed husband had become something far more formidable. He was a force of change, ready to transform Millbrook into a testament to his resilience and success. The Grand Millbrook's ballroom was filled with the town's business and social elite for the Hood Innovations welcome reception. Alex stood, taking in the scene, his gaze filled with admiration for the crowd and the view. A decade of Asian business dealings had taught him the value of careful observation. He took note of the crowd's natural segmentation, intrigued by the dynamic energy in the air. Those who remembered the scandal kept a respectful distance, while younger entrepreneurs and tech professionals gravitated toward him, eager to connect with the billionaire CEO. The power dynamics had shifted significantly since his departure. "Mr. Hood," a familiar voice made him turn. Marissa stood there. Her blonde hair, now streaked with gray, was as vibrant as ever, and she wore a dress that, while not new, had seen better days. The years had been good to her, if not kind. Her eyes, etched with the lines of experience, hinted at the stories she had lived. "Dr. Reynolds," he replied enthusiastically, using her maiden name. "This is a private corporate event." "I need to talk to you about the children," she pressed, her voice low but urgent. "About support. The trust funds have provided everything as promised." Alex interrupted, his tone firm and authoritative. "Your financial difficulties are your own concern." Her face flushed with excitement. "They're your children too, regardless of biology. You raised them. Until I discovered 15 years of systematic deception," he finished, taking a measured sip of his whiskey. "How is Bruce these days? I heard the accounting firm keeps him busy." The mention of Bruce made her flinch, but she quickly recovered. After his financial empire crumbled, Bruce Cummins had been forced to take a position as a junior accountant. His reputation may have taken a hit, but he was still the same formidable figure she had always known. The once mighty financial advisor had taken on the role of helping others with their financial records. "You've made your point," Marissa hissed. "You've won. You're successful. We're struggling. Isn't that enough?" Alex turned to face her fully, his expression impassive. "This isn't about winning, Marissa. This is about consequences. Every choice has consequences. Yours, Bruce's, my mother's, and mine. I chose to rebuild. What about you, Marissa?" Before she could respond, a thrilling commotion near the ballroom entrance drew their attention. Thomas, Emma, and Lucas, now 24, 22, and 19 respectively, stood in the doorway, their presence causing a ripple of whispers through the crowd. Alex had seen photos. Miranda, of course, kept him updated on their major life events. But seeing them in person, as adults, made his chest tighten. Thomas had grown into his features, looking so much like Bruce it was startling. Emma's grace was like a dancer's, a sight to behold. Her auburn hair swept up elegantly. Lucas, the youngest, clutched a familiar envelope in his hand. It was the same letter Alex had given to Miranda. "Dad," Thomas spoke first, his voice deeper than Alex remembered. "Or should we call you Mr. Hood now?" "That depends on you." Alex replied thoughtfully. "I assume you've read the letters." Emma stepped forward, her movements precise and confident. "We have. All these years, we thought you'd abandoned us. But you were watching over us, weren't you? The college recommendations, the internship opportunities that seemed to appear at just the right moments. It was all part of your plan, wasn't it? The trust funds were meant to ensure your futures," Alex explained, aware of the growing audience around them. "Your choices were your own." Lucas, who'd recently started at MIT, finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell us the truth back then? Why wait until we were 18? "Because you deserved a childhood free from adult betrayals," Alex answered, meeting each of their gazes in turn. "Your mother and Bruce's choices weren't your burden to bear." Marissa's voice cracked with emotion, but Emma's look spoke volumes about their relationship, and it silenced her. "We've made our own judgments over the years," she said quietly. "We've watched how everyone handled the aftermath of what happened. The letters explained everything," Thomas added, "but we'd already figured out most of it. The way Mom and Bruce acted after you left, how Grandmother tried to buy our affection with gifts while living off her reduced allowance. Speaking of Caroline, Alex's tone carried a hint of steel. How was my mother? Living in Sunset Grove retirement community, Lucas supplied. She tries to convince everyone there that she's just downsizing by choice. The irony was unmistakable. Caroline Root, once the grand orchestrator of Millbrook's social scene, now lived on a strict allowance in a modest retirement facility. Her role in the deception had cost her not just her wealth, but her social standing. Mr. Hood, Way appeared at his elbow. The Tech Park board members have arrived. They're eager to discuss the renovation timeline. Alex nodded, then turned back to his former family. My door is always open to you three, he said quietly, not for money. The trust handled that, but for anything else you need, the choice to maintain contact is yours. As he moved toward the waiting board members, he heard Marissa's last desperate attempt. Alex, please, the hospital board is reviewing my position. One word from you. He paused, not turning around. Your choices, your consequences, Marissa. I learned that lesson less than 10 years ago. Now it's your turn. The rest of the evening passed in a flurry of business discussions and social niceties. Alex noticed how Thomas, Emma, and Lucas remained at the reception, moving through the crowd with the ease of young adults who had grown up in Millbrook's social scene. They were neither hiding from their connection to him nor flaunting it. They were simply present, making their own choices. Later that night, in his penthouse suite, Alex received 3 separate text messages. From Thomas, lunch next week, there's a new place downtown. From Emma, my dance company's performing next month. Sending you tickets. Lucas reached out with a thrilling proposition. I'm working on a blockchain project for school, and I'd love your insights. He smiled, saving their numbers. The confrontation he'd anticipated for 10 years had transformed into something unexpected, and it was thrilling. It wasn't an ending, but a thrilling new beginning. The transformation of Millbrook Tech Park moved swiftly under Hood Innovation's direction. Construction crews worked tirelessly, converting outdated office spaces into cutting-edge research and development facilities. The town buzzed with activity as new employees arrived. Housing prices rose, and local businesses experienced a renaissance. From his office in the newly renovated main building, Alex beheld his vision come to life. The glass-walled space offered a panoramic view of the campus, where Hood Innovation's signature blue and silver logo now adorned every building. Sir, I've got the latest employment figures, Way said, presenting a tablet displaying the data. We've hired over 300 local residents, and another 200 positions will open next quarter. Good. How's the training program coming along? Exceptionally well. The collaboration with Millbrook Community College is truly a game changer. Even Bruce Cummins applied for one of the accounting positions, though HR flagged a potential conflict. Alex's lips curved slightly. Let him apply. We're committed to merit-based decisions. No preferential treatment, positive or negative. The irony was not lost on either of them. Bruce, the brilliant mastermind of complex financial schemes, might end up processing payroll for the company run by the man he had betrayed. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Miranda Hughes entered, as elegant as ever despite the decade that had passed. Your mother's here, she announced without preamble. Security called from the lobby. Alex leaned back in his chair, considering. Caroline had been trying to arrange a meeting since his return, sending messages through various intermediaries. Her latest attempt, showing up unannounced, was a classic Caroline maneuver. Send her up, he decided. Wei, please stay. Caroline appeared minutes later, looking smaller than he remembered. The designer clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide how time and reduced circumstances had affected her. She entered his office, her handbag acting as a shield. Alexander, she began, her voice trembling slightly with excitement. You've done so well for yourself. What brings you here today, Mother? She flinched at his tone but pressed on. I thought, now that you're back and so successful, we could try to repair our relationship. Our relationship ended the day I discovered you helped orchestrate 15 years of deception, Alex replied evenly. The annual support payments will continue as agreed, provided you maintain your distance. I'm your mother, she protested. Everything I did was because I wanted the best for you. No. Alex's voice carried the weight of years of reflection. Everything you did was about control. You thought you knew better than me what my life should be. So you helped Bruce and Marissa deceive me for 15 years. Those were your choices, Mother. Now, we're seeing the results of those choices. Caroline's facade cracked. The retirement community. It's not where I belong. You can see that, right? With your newfound resources? The monthly allowance is generous enough for your needs, Alex interjected. Wei, please escort my mother out. Ensure security updates her status. No unscheduled visits. As Caroline was led away, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Alex turned back to the window. Below, he could see new employees entering the building, their Hood Innovations ID badges catching the morning sun. The weeks that followed were filled with exciting changes at Millbrook. Alex maintained his distance from the old social circles, focusing instead on the tech park's development and his growing relationship with Thomas, Emma, and Lucas. Thomas joined Hood Innovations' management training program, proving himself capable without relying on his connection to Alex. Emma's dance company performed to a full house, with Alex in the audience. He discreetly exited before she could introduce him to her fellow dancers. Lucas sought his advice on technical projects, and their conversations flowed naturally from blockchain architecture to life in general. The children's trust funds ensured their independence, while their individual choices showed the adults they were becoming. They nurtured relationships with their biological parents while confidently establishing clear boundaries, fully grasping the intricate web of decisions that had shaped their family history. One crisp autumn morning, almost a year after his return, Alex stood in his office, beaming as he watched Lucas guide a group of MIT students through the tech park. The youngest of his non-biological children had grown into a thoughtful young man, already showing promise in both technical innovation and leadership. The occasion was none other than Lucas' graduation party. Alex had chosen to host the celebration at Hood Innovations headquarters. The guest list was meticulously curated. While Marissa, Bruce, and Caroline were not in attendance, the event was filled with the vibrant energy of Lucas's professors, classmates, and siblings. Professor Chin, a renowned figure in the field, couldn't help but acknowledge Lucas' remarkable insight into blockchain applications. His thesis on decentralized supply chain verification is revolutionary. Alex smiled, delighted, as Lucas explained a complex technical concept to his fellow graduates. "He's his own person," he replied. "I just provided opportunities. He chose what to do with them." The party moved to the rooftop garden, another of Hood Innovation's amazing additions to the tech park. Thomas and Emma had already arrived, and their presence completed the picture of what family could mean when chosen rather than merely inherited. "Did you ever imagine this?" Thomas asked, joining Alex at the railing. "When you left 10 years ago?" Alex reflected on the question, taking in the breathtaking view of the revitalized Millbrook landscape. The tech park's renovation had sparked a revival throughout the town. New businesses had set up shop in the empty storefronts. Young professionals filled the renovated apartments, and the community college's tech program had a waiting list for the first time in its history. "I imagined success," he admitted, beaming. "But this." He gestured to include not just the view but the gathering behind them. "This is something better," he declared, beaming. Emma approached, her dancer's grace evident even in casual movement. "Mom tried to convince me to ask you for more money again," she said, playfully rolling her eyes. "I let her know the trust fund was already more than generous, and her financial issues weren't your concern." "How was she doing?" Alex asked, his tone full of curiosity. "She's working at a small private practice now," Thomas shared. "After the hospital board, well, let's just say her reputation never recovered." They watched as Lucas accepted congratulations from his peers, his MIT acceptance ring catching the sunlight. The boy who had once built Lego cities on Alex's living room floor had grown into a man of substance and integrity. "You know what's funny?" Lucas joined them, loosening his tie. "You know what's funny? Bruce tried to take credit for my natural aptitude for numbers at the last family dinner Mom insisted on. I told him genetic contribution doesn't equal parental influence." The siblings shared a knowing look, years of understanding passing between them. They had witnessed firsthand how their parents' choices could lead to different outcomes, and they saw how the man who chose to love them, despite everything, had opened up a whole new world for them. "The trust funds were just money," Emma reflected. "You showed us how to handle betrayal with dignity, how to rebuild without losing ourselves, and how to choose who we want to be." Thomas chimed in, "And that's not just based on DNA." As the sun set over Millbrook, bathing the sky in amber and gold, Emma and Thomas felt a sense of optimism and possibility for their future. Below, the tech park's lights began to illuminate, creating a constellation of progress and possibility. The town that had witnessed Alex's humiliation now stood as a testament to his resilience. "I got offered a position in Singapore," Lucas announced excitedly, "at Hood Innovation's R&D division. I'm proud to say I applied through regular channels, used a different last name, and earned it on my own merits," he added, beaming. Alex nodded, pride evident in his expression. "When do you start?" "That depends," Lucas grinned. "I'd love to see your side of the world first. Maybe introduce me to that martial arts instructor you mentioned?" The request hung in the air, representing more than just a job or a trip. It was an acknowledgement of the relationship they had built, one founded on choice rather than obligation. "I'd love to," Alex said enthusiastically. As the party continued around them, Alex reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The betrayal that had shattered his world had also freed him to create something new. They had built not just a successful company or a transformed town, but a different kind of family, one built on truth, choice, and mutual respect. The residents of Millbrook still whispered about the scandal sometimes, but more often they spoke excitedly of the transformation, both their town and the man who had returned to remake it. They pointed to the awe-inspiring Hood Innovations campus, a symbol of what's possible when tragedy becomes fuel for triumph. But for Alex, standing with the three young adults who had chosen to keep him in their lives, the real victory wasn't in the buildings or the business success. It was in the understanding that family, real family, could be built from the ashes of betrayal, stronger for being chosen rather than merely inherited. As the sun set on Millbrook, the last vestiges of old wounds slowly faded into the sunset. Alexander Hood had found something better than revenge, a newfound joy and a family bound not by blood but by choice. He had found peace, purpose, and a family bound by choice rather than blood. His new life, built on the foundation of integrity and determination, stood as a testament not to what he had lost, but to what he had chosen to create. The story that Millbrook would remember wasn't just about a betrayed husband who became a billionaire. It was about a man who showed that the strongest bonds aren't those we're born into, but those we choose to forge, maintain, and honor through our actions and choices. The tech park's lights twinkled below like stars, a vibrant constellation of possibilities realized. Alex stood surrounded by his chosen family, watching Lucas explain his blockchain theories to eager listeners, seeing Thomas discuss management strategies with department heads, and observing Emma's quiet confidence as she navigated the social dynamics with practiced ease. This was his legacy. It wasn't the buildings or the wealth that mattered, but the living proof that integrity, resilience, and the courage to choose one's own path could transform even the deepest betrayal into a foundation for something greater. Epilogue. 5 years after Alex's return to Millbrook, the autumn wind scattered golden leaves across the grounds of Sunset Grove Retirement Community, where Caroline Root sat in her modest apartment, watching a financial news segment about Hood Innovations' latest breakthrough. Her son's company had just announced a revolutionary blockchain platform that would transform global supply chains, sending the stock price soaring to unprecedented heights. The irony wasn't lost on her. 15 years ago, she had made what she thought was the best decision for her son's future, believing Bruce Cummins to be the better connection. Now, her monthly allowance, generous but strictly controlled, came from the very son whose life she had tried to manipulate. Her phone buzzed with a text from her grandson Lucas, now a rising star in Hood Innovations' Singapore R&D division. Like all her grandchildren's messages, it was polite but distant, sharing professional news without personal warmth. The children had learned the cost of manipulation from watching their parents and grandmother fall from grace. Across town, Marissa Reynolds wrapped up her day at a local clinic. The sign on her door read, "Family Practice," a far cry from her former position as a prestigious pediatrician at Millbrook General. The prescription fraud scandal that had cost her medical license had been a difficult challenge, but she had persevered and was excited to get back to practicing. Her small office was a testament to her journey, a reminder of her resilience and dedication to her patients. Where once she had a large private practice within the hospital, now she treated minor ailments in a clinic that catered to those without insurance. The walls, once adorned with prestigious certificates, now held only her basic medical license, newly reinstated but permanently marked with restrictions. Meanwhile, Bruce Cummins had also faced challenges, but he had shown resilience and determination. The former financial titan now worked as a mid-level accountant at Hood Innovations, his application accepted purely on merit after years of struggling in smaller firms. The irony of processing payroll for his former rival's empire wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Bruce himself. His marriage to Krista had ended in a divorce that stripped him of everything, but he was excited to start a new chapter. Valerie Stevens, Krista's attorney, had been ruthlessly efficient in exposing every hidden asset, every offshore account. The man who had once managed millions now lived in a one-bedroom apartment, driving a used Toyota to work. The affair that had seemed so cleverly managed, so perfectly orchestrated, had unraveled not just their marriages, but their entire social world. While Bruce and Marissa occasionally saw each other at their children's major life events, their interaction was limited to stiff nods and avoided gazes. The passion that had driven them to deceive Alex for 15 years had withered in the harsh light of consequences, and they were excited to move forward. Their children, however, had flourished in unexpected ways. Thomas, now 29, had climbed the corporate ladder of Hood Innovations all by himself, becoming the director of operations for the North American division. His relationship with Alex had blossomed into a deep respect and shared business acumen. Emma, 27, had transformed her dance background into a thriving therapeutic movement program, helping trauma survivors heal through artistic expression. She maintained offices in both Millbrook and Singapore, splitting her time between continents and occasionally consulting for Hood Innovations' employee wellness program. Lucas, the youngest at 24, had become a force in the tech world. His groundbreaking blockchain innovations had earned him well-deserved recognition, separate from his connection to Hood Innovations. Yet, he had chosen to remain in his role at the company that had given him his start. His bond with Alex had deepened into a true mentorship, unmarred by biological connections or social expectations. The three siblings had developed a unique perspective on family and loyalty. They had a special bond with Alex, based on shared values and mutual choice, while maintaining dutiful but distant relationships with their biological parents. Their trust funds, managed impeccably by independent trustees, had provided them with opportunities without creating dependency. At a recent tech conference in Singapore, Lucas had been asked about his relationship with Alex Hood. His response made headlines: "DNA doesn't make a father. Choices do. The man who chose to love us despite betrayal, who showed us how to succeed with integrity. That's the father we chose to keep in our lives." Miranda Hughes, now semi-retired but still serving as Hood Innovations' chief legal counsel, proudly displayed a framed copy of that quote in her office. She had watched the incredible story unfold from that first meeting with a betrayed husband to the empire it had spawned. The letter she had held for the children, delivered at precisely the right moment, had helped bridge the gap between past and future. Hood Innovations had transformed Millbrook into a tech hub that attracted global talent. The town's character had undergone a remarkable transformation, evolving from a quaint suburban enclave into a vibrant community where innovation and tradition coexisted harmoniously. The old social hierarchy that had shielded Bruce and Marissa's secret had been replaced by a meritocracy that prized achievement over connections. Alex himself had evolved beyond the role of betrayed husband or successful CEO. At 57, he had become a mentor to young entrepreneurs, particularly those who had faced personal betrayals. His remarkable journey had become the stuff of business school case studies, a testament not just to his technical acumen, but also to the profound lessons about integrity and resilience it had taught him. He kept up his martial arts practice, the discipline helping him stay grounded despite his massive success. His Singapore dojo still reserved early morning hours for his private training, though he now spent equal time between Asia and Millbrook. The physical transformation that had begun during his exile had become a permanent part of his character, reflecting the inner strength he had discovered through adversity. The original Hood residence, where the fateful Thanksgiving revelation had occurred, had been converted into a technology incubator for startups. Alex had bought the property through a subsidiary and transformed it into a space where new entrepreneurs could build their dreams. The garden where he had first overheard Marissa's phone call now featured meditation spaces and collaborative work areas. Caroline's beach house, once the site of many a clandestine meeting, had been sold years ago. The money from the sale went to a scholarship fund for children of broken homes, managed by the same trustees who oversaw the children's trust funds. The property itself had been transformed into a vibrant retreat center, a hub for corporate innovation workshops. Its dark history had been transformed into a space for creative breakthrough. Krista Cummins had remarried and moved to California, where she ran a successful interior design firm. She collaborated with Hood Innovations on office space projects, and her contributions were greatly appreciated. Her professional relationship with Alex was marked by mutual respect for how they had handled their respective betrayals. The annual Hood Innovation shareholders meeting, held in the renovated Millbrook Tech Park, was a testament to the incredible progress made. Bruce, a mid-level employee, sat quietly in the back while his former rival presented visions of global technological transformation. Marissa, during her lunch breaks, watched the live stream from her clinic, seeing the life that might have been hers had she made different choices. Thomas, Emma, and Lucas attended these meetings as both shareholders and family members. Their presence was a testament to the complex ways that choice could transcend biology. They had learned to navigate their dual heritage with grace, acknowledging their biological parents while choosing to emulate the values Alex had demonstrated. On particularly clear days, Alex sometimes stood in his office, atop the Hood Innovations Tower, looking out over the town that had witnessed both his humiliation and his triumph. The view reminded him of his Singapore office, though the landscapes could not be more different. Both perspectives shared the same truth, that success was the best revenge, but peace was an even better victory. His relationship with his children was a testament to the beauty of transformation, a unique journey that defied the expectations of family dynamics. They were bound not by obligation or DNA, but by shared values and mutual choice. Each had found their own path while maintaining the connection they had chosen to preserve. During a recent graduation ceremony at MIT, where Lucas had been invited to give the commencement speech, the young man had spoken about the nature of family and choice. We are not defined by the actions of others, even those closest to us. We are defined by how we choose to respond, by the integrity we maintain in the face of betrayal, and by the relationships we choose to honor. His speech resonated deeply, going viral and reigniting the community's passion for the remarkable story of Millbrook's transformation. Local papers ran retrospectives, comparing the town before and after the Hood Innovations transformation. The contrast was stark, not just in economic terms, but in how the community valued truth over social pretense. Marissa and Bruce's affair, once the scandal of Millbrook, had become a cautionary tale about the cost of deception. Their choices had cost them their marriages, social standing, professional dignity, and their children's respect. They witnessed firsthand the remarkable transformation of the man they had betrayed, who now redefined the world they had once thought they controlled. Caroline's role as the architect of deception had earned her a special place in the town's cautionary legends. Her belief that she knew best, that she could orchestrate her son's life without consequences, had cost her everything she valued: wealth, social position, and most importantly, her relationship with her son and grandchildren. But the story that emerged wasn't just about revenge or justice. Instead, it was about the incredible transformation of a man, a family, a town, and the nature of success itself. Alex Hood had shown that the strongest relationships are the ones we choose to maintain, that integrity is more valuable than social position, and that true family can be built from the ashes of betrayal. The awe-inspiring tech park stands as a testament to this remarkable transformation, its innovative architecture reflecting the town's evolving character. But the real monument was invisible. It lived in the choices made by those who had witnessed the unfolding drama, the lessons learned about loyalty and consequence, and the understanding that family is not just what we're born into, but what we choose to create. As the golden and crimson hues of autumn painted Millbrook's landscape, the town stood as a vibrant testament to the transformative power of choice. It was a shining example of integrity triumphing over deception and the profound peace that arises from building something new instead of lingering in the shadow of past losses. The betrayed husband had become a symbol of triumph, a testament to how we can transform pain into purpose, betrayal into breakthrough, and loss into legacy. The story of Alexander Hood and the choices that reshaped Millbrook continues to inspire new generations, reminding us that our lives are not determined by what others do to us, but by how we choose to respond. Ultimately, the greatest triumph wasn't in the wealth amassed or the empires erected, but in the remarkable demonstration that character, choice, and integrity could transform even the deepest betrayal into a foundation for something greater than revenge. This is a legacy of resilience, wisdom, and the incredible power of choosing one's own path. This is where our story comes to an end. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.